Hello, and welcome to this roundup of historical romance novels where there's a relationship between a widow and her late husband's heir. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot. You're watching Random Olive Reads. Second Duke's the Charm by Kate Bateman is book one of Her Majesty's Rebel series. So, Tess becomes a widow to her much older husband on her wedding night and then uses her newfound freedom and independence to open an investigative agency with her two best friends. 2 years later, wealthy shipping merchant Justin is identified as the next Duke and stops by a scandalous house party on his way to claiming the title. There, he meets Tess in disguise, and they have an amorous encounter as strangers, neither realizing that they will soon meet under very different circumstances. When they properly meet at a ball, Justin immediately proposes a marriage of convenience to Tess, since it'll save Justin the trouble of finding a proper wife, and they get to continue their physical relationship. From there, we navigate a relationship where Tess is trying really hard not to fall in love, and Justin is denying the fact that he has a heart. We also have Tess and her friends working on a case in secret in the background, and with all of these things going on in this book, it was definitely a page turner. The Duchess Gamble by Sophie Darling is book two of the All's Fair in Love and Racing series. Widowed Duchess Celia is mostly trying to deal with her horse racing operation and is disappointed when a potential engagement to a wealthy duke doesn't pan out. She's also concerned about her own security when the solicitors tell her they found the next duke. Gabriel is a distant relation to the late Duke and hardly believes that he's now the Duke, but he seizes the opportunity to launch his younger sisters into society. When he first meets Celia, he thinks that she's like a title hunter, but once he gets to know her, he changes her mind. And with Celia wanting to keep her stables operating, she and Gabriel make a deal where he will finance the stables if she will help prepare his sisters for society. It doesn't take long for a friendship to develop and then an affair, even though Celia thinks that she's not good enough to be Gabriel's future wife. We get over that pretty quickly, though, once she starts to see how nice Gabriel is and how well he treats her. As an Earl Desires by Lorraine Heath is book one of the Lost Lords series. Widowed Countess Camilla is a well-liked society lady, and she helps the new Earl Archibald in learning the rules of society. With all the time they spend together, there's definitely sparks of attraction between them. However, she has a big secret that she's hiding from him, and she worries about him thinking poorly of her. While the secret itself isn't that juicy, it reveals a much darker one that turns the whole story around. Once Upon a Wedding Night by Sophie Jordan is book one of the Daring series. Meredith is the widow to an earl, and she's worried that the new earl is going to kick her family out of the estate. So she and her aunt come up with a plan where she says that she's pregnant with potentially the next heir. Nick is the younger half brother of the previous Earl who has been kind of pulled out of his gambling hell to say, hey, you're the next Earl. But he doesn't want anything to do with being a titled gentleman and is happy to find out that Meredith is potentially pregnant. Meredith and Nick are terribly attracted to each other, but he goes back to London to avoid her. When he eventually learns out that Meredith has lied about her pregnancy, he gets all vindictive and decides to get rid of his responsibility to her by marrying her off to somebody else. Unfortunately, he starts to get super jealous of all of her other suitors, so then he just marries her. Kind of crazy. Cold Hearted Rake by Lisa Kleypas is book one of the Ravenel series. Devon has inherited an earldom when his cousin Theo dies after being thrown from a horse. He finds his new estate in massive debt and a bunch of cousins without dowries and Theo's widow to deal with. Devon and Kathleen clash over what to do about the estate, the tenants, and how to deal with Theo's sisters. We also learn very quickly that Kathleen and Theo did not have the optimal marriage, so she's totally skittish around men. We get to see these two very hot-tempered leads find their way to each other, even though Kathleen is supposed to be mourning her dead husband. This book spends a lot of time setting up the Ravenel family as the start of the series, with a pretty predictable romance between Kathleen and Devon. When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn is book 6 of the Bridgerton series. Francesca Bridgerton was a diamond who married for love in her first season, but sadly her husband died unexpectedly at a very young age. Her husband's cousin, Michael, is next in line for the earldom, but his long-standing crush on Francesca leads him to run away and stay away from her while she's mourning her husband. Several years later, he returns to England at about the same time that she is ready to remarry, hoping to find a husband to have children with, even though she doesn't want to fall in love. Somehow, she and Michael start an affair, and she thinks it'll just be physical, but he's feeling horribly guilty for being in love with her all this time, and then it's just a huge, complicated ball of emotions with lots of guilt all around because the first husband was actually a good guy. Surrendering to the Duke by Stevie Sparks is book 1 of the Lords of Desire series. We have a Duke's widow, Emmeline, living with her late husband's family and her young daughter. Michael, her late husband's younger brother, is back at home after completing his war-related duties after the Great War, and his mother suggests that he marry Emmeline to provide her with more children and provide the dukedom with an heir. Of course, Michael had been in love with Emmeline since he first saw her, but has had extreme guilt over coveting his brother's wife. So these two start a courtship of convenience with the possible goal of marriage, but they both have past traumatic events and secrets that might get in the way, but they just have to talk it out. There's lots of drama and angst in this book. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.